Hey everyone, welcome back. 12 quiet signs. She's probably seeing someone else. Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." But what happens when ignoring the signs in your relationship could be costing you your peace of mind, your time, and your emotional well-being? Before we begin, I want to be clear. These signs don't guarantee infidelity. They're patterns to be aware of, not absolute truths. The Stoics taught us to focus on what we can control, our responses, our choices, and our inner strength. If you're here because something feels off in your relationship, you're not alone. Millions of people struggle with these concerns, and today, we're going to address them with the wisdom of ancient philosophy and modern psychology. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're building a community of people committed to growth, wisdom, and authentic relationships. And if this video helps you gain clarity, let me know in the comments below. Now let's dive in. The Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they understood something profound about human relationships. They knew that suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. Epictetus taught us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So today, as we explore these signs, we're not doing it to create anxiety or suspicion. We're doing it to, 1. Develop awareness. Knowledge protects us from deception. 2. Maintain our dignity by responding thoughtfully, not reactively. 3. Preserve our peace by focusing on what we can control. 4. Make informed decisions about our relationships and our lives. The ancient Stoics believed in facing reality as it is, not as we wish it were. They called this amor fati, love of fate, even when that reality is difficult. Remember, these signs exist on a spectrum. One or two might mean nothing, but when multiple signs appear together, it's time for honest reflection and perhaps honest conversation. Let's begin with the most subtle sign, one that even she might not be fully aware of herself. Sign 1, the emotional distance. Sign number 1, she's emotionally pulling away. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But what happens when the person pulling away is the one you love? Emotional distance is often the first sign, and it's incredibly subtle. It's not dramatic arguments or obvious coldness. It's less excitement when she sees you. Less curiosity about your day, less emotional investment in your conversations. Here's what it looks like. She used to ask about your work stress. Now she just nods. Conversations feel more transactional, logistics instead of connection. She's physically present but emotionally somewhere else. Her responses lack the warmth they once had. The Stoic perspective. Seneca taught us, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Sometimes, emotional distance signals that her heart is beginning something new elsewhere. But here's the Stoic wisdom. Don't immediately assume the worst. People pull away for many reasons. Work stress, personal struggles, family issues. The wise person observes without judgment and seeks understanding. What you can control. How you respond to this distance. Whether you create space for honest conversation. Your own emotional availability. The quality of connection you offer, what you cannot control, her feelings, her choices, where her attention goes, whether she returns to closeness. A personal story. I once counseled a man named David who noticed his girlfriend Sarah becoming distant. Instead of confronting her with accusations, he applied Stoic principles. He first examined himself. Was he being emotionally available? Then he created space for open dialogue. It turned out Sarah wasn't seeing someone else. She was struggling with anxiety about her career. But in another case, the distance was indeed a sign of divided attention. The key is approaching it with wisdom, not assumptions. Action step. If you notice emotional distance, don't ignore it, but don't catastrophize either. Create an opportunity for genuine connection. Ask open-ended questions. Listen with your full attention. Sometimes, distance is a cry for deeper intimacy, not a sign of betrayal. The next sign builds on this emotional shift. Sign 2, communication patterns shift. Sign number 2, her communication patterns completely change. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak." But what happens when the person you love stops sharing their inner world with you? This goes deeper than just talking less. It's about how she communicates, when she communicates, and what she chooses to share or withhold. The pattern shifts. She used to text throughout the day. Now it's sporadic and brief. Phone calls become rare, even when you're apart. She shares fewer details about her daily experiences. Her responses feel rehearsed or guarded. She's less likely to share spontaneous thoughts or feelings. But here's where it gets subtle. She might actually start communicating more about certain topics, work, friends, activities, while sharing less about her inner emotional world. She becomes evasive about specific times and places. She provides too much detail about mundane things, overcompensating while being vague about important ones. The Stoic lens. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. When communication patterns shift, our minds often race to worst-case scenarios. The Stoic approach is different. Observe the pattern without immediately creating a story about it. People communicate differently during different life seasons. Stress, depression, new responsibilities, all can change how someone shares themselves. Real-world example. Consider Lisa and Mark. Lisa suddenly stopped sharing details about her work events and colleague interactions. Mark's first instinct was suspicion. Was she involved with a coworker? Using Stoic principles, Mark focused on what he could control, his response. Instead of becoming interrogative, he became more curious and supportive. He discovered Lisa was actually embarrassed about a potential layoff at work and didn't want to burden him with her anxiety. But in another case with different clients, the communication shift was about someone else. The key difference? Consistency of the pattern and other accompanying signs. The Stoic response. 1. Notice without judgment. Observe the change as a fact, not immediately as a threat. 2. Examine your own communication. Are you creating space for her to share? 3. Respond with curiosity, not accusation. I've noticed we've been connecting differently lately. How are you feeling about us? 4. Focus on quality over quantity. Make your interactions meaningful and safe. Remember, changes in communication are information, not verdicts. The wise person gathers information before drawing conclusions. Now let's look at a sign that's often overlooked, but incredibly telling. Sign 3. The phone becomes a fortress. Sign number 3. Her phone becomes her most protected possession. The best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. Ernest Hemingway said that, but the Stoics would add, and observe their response to that trust. Her relationship with her phone changes dramatically, and it's not just about privacy, it's about secrecy. There's a crucial difference. What this looks like. Phone is always face down or in another room. She takes it with her, even for short trips to the bathroom or kitchen. Notifications are turned off or she quickly dismisses them without reading. She's suddenly very concerned about you seeing her screen, even accidentally. She creates distance when texting or taking calls. Her phone habits change. More texting at odd hours, more work calls. The Stoic understanding. Seneca taught, every man is in bondage to fear who depends upon the whims of fortune. When someone becomes secretive with their phone, they're often in bondage to the fear of discovery. But here's the nuanced view. We all deserve privacy. The question is whether this represents a normal boundary or a defensive wall built to hide something. The key distinction. Privacy. I like to keep my personal conversations private. Secrecy, actively hiding, being defensive, or overreacting to normal curiosity. Case study. I worked with a couple where the woman, Janet, suddenly became very protective of her phone. Her partner, Robert, felt immediately suspicious. But when they explored it together, they discovered Janet had been planning a surprise vacation for their anniversary and was coordinating with travel agents and his family members. However, in another case, The phone secrecy was indeed covering an emotional affair that had been building for months. The Stoic response strategy. 1. Don't violate privacy through snooping. This damages your own integrity and doesn't lead to truth. 2. Trust your observations. If the pattern is dramatically different, that information matters. 3. Address the pattern, not the content. I've noticed you seem more private with your phone lately. Is everything okay? 4. Focus on connection, not control. You cannot control her choices, but you can influence the openness in your relationship. Marcus Aurelius's wisdom applies here. Confine yourself to the present. Don't create elaborate stories about what might be on her phone. Focus on the present moment and the pattern you're observing. Red flags versus yellow flags. Red flag, extreme defensiveness. When you're near her phone during normal activities. Yellow flag, general increased privacy that could have multiple explanations. The fourth sign often accompanies phone secrecy. Sign 4, routine and schedule changes. Sign number 4, her routines and schedules become mysteriously fluid. Epictetus said, "No one can harm you without your permission." But what happens when someone you trust starts creating mysterious gaps in their availability? This isn't about normal schedule changes due to work or responsibilities. This is about new patterns that don't quite add up, accompanied by vague explanations. The pattern emerges. New work commitments that happen during unusual hours. Social activities that are vaguely described. Extended errands that seem to take longer than necessary. New hobbies or interests that require significant time away. Girls' nights or social gatherings that increase in frequency. Weekend activities that don't include you with minimal details. The subtle signs. She's less available for spontaneous plans. When you ask about her day, certain hours are glossed over. She's tired after activities that shouldn't be exhausting. Her energy levels don't match her described activities. Stoic wisdom in action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." People's schedules do change naturally as life evolves. The Stoic approach is to observe these changes with clarity, not paranoia. Questions to ask yourself, not her, yet. 1. Are these changes explained reasonably? 2. Is she including me in her new interests when appropriate? 3. Does her energy and mood match her described activities? 4. Are these changes part of personal growth or secretive behavior? 2 different stories. Story 1. Sarah. Sarah started spending Saturday afternoons at book club. When her boyfriend James felt suspicious, he applied Stoic principles. He observed that Sarah was genuinely excited about the book she was reading. She invited him to meet her book club friends, and she was more intellectually stimulated in their conversations. The schedule change was legitimate personal growth. Story 2. Michelle. Michelle began having frequent work dinners that lasted until very late hours. Her partner noticed these dinners never involved colleagues he knew, never had clear business purposes, and Michelle was often emotionally distant afterward. The pattern suggested something beyond work obligations. The Stoic response framework. Observe patterns, not individual instances. One late work dinner means nothing. A pattern of unexplained time means something. Trust but verify. It's reasonable to understand your partner's life without being controlling. Focus on your response. You cannot control her choices, but you can control whether you accept vague explanations indefinitely. Communicate needs, not suspicions. I'd love to understand more about your new interests. Vers, where were you really? When to be concerned. Multiple unexplained time periods per week. Defensive responses to reasonable curiosity. Stories that change upon retelling. Her mood energy doesn't match her described activities. You feel like you're being managed rather than informed. The Stoic's advantage. When you approach this calmly and rationally, you maintain your dignity regardless of the truth. If she's being honest, your reasonable curiosity strengthens trust. If she's being deceptive, your clarity helps you make better decisions. The fifth sign often reveals itself through these schedule changes. Sign 5, social media behavior shifts. Sign number 5, Her social media becomes a different story. Seneca wrote, "The willing destiny guides them. The unwilling destiny drags them." On social media, people often reveal their true intentions through what they choose to share and what they choose to hide. Social media behavior can be incredibly revealing, not because of dramatic posts, but because of subtle shifts in patterns, engagement, and presentation. The changes to watch. Posts about your relationship decrease or disappear. She's less likely to tag you or include you in her social media narrative. Her posting times change. More late-night activity. More activity during work hours. She's engaging more with certain people's content. New followers or friends, particularly men, that she doesn't mention. Her posts suggest activities or locations she didn't tell you about. She becomes more secretive about her social media usage. The more subtle signs. Her online personality seems different from her personality with you. She posts about being busy or stressed when she seems fine at home. Photos of her alone increase when she used to post couple photos. She's active online during times when she said she was busy or unavailable. Stoic perspective on social media. Marcus Aurelius couldn't have imagined Instagram, but he understood human nature. Remember that very little disturbs the happiness of a truly wise person. Social media amplifies our insecurities, but it also reveals truths about priorities and attention. The Stoic approach isn't to obsess over every like and comment, but to notice patterns that reflect changes in values and focus. Case analysis. Situation A. Emma. Emma stopped posting couple photos and began posting more solo shots, with captions about independence and self-discovery. Her boyfriend initially worried, but conversation revealed she was going through a personal growth phase and wanted to rediscover her individual identity within the relationship. Her social media reflected healthy personal development. Situation B. Jessica. Jessica's social media showed her at restaurants and events that she never mentioned to her partner. She was actively engaging with a coworker's posts, while becoming less responsive to her boyfriend's comments. Her online life was creating a separate narrative from her relationship life. What to look for? Consistency. Does her online life match what she tells you about her life? Inclusion. Are you part of her social media story, or have you been edited out? Engagement patterns. Is she more responsive to certain people than to you? Energy mismatch. Does her online energy mood match her energy with you? The Stoic response. Don't become a social media detective obsessing over every detail. Focus on patterns, not individual posts. Address disconnects between online presentation and your relationship reality. Remember that social media is performance. Focus on in-person connection. Red flags. Actively hiding her social media activity from you. Creating stories online that don't include you when they previously would have. Engaging romantically or flirtatiously with others online. Her online life suggesting a completely different lifestyle than what you experience together. Yellow flags. General decrease in couple content could be personal growth. More individual posting could be healthy independence. New social connections could be legitimate networking or friendships. The key is proportion and context. Next, let's look at a sign that affects the foundation of your relationship. Sign 6, intimacy patterns change. Sign number 6, physical and emotional intimacy shifts dramatically. Epictetus taught, wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. In relationships, true wealth lies in authentic intimacy. And when that changes, everything changes. This sign is often the most painful to recognize, because intimacy is where we're most vulnerable. Changes here affect not just the relationship, but our sense of self-worth and desirability. Physical intimacy changes. Frequency decreases without clear explanation. She seems less present during intimate moments. Physical affection, non-sexual touch, kisses, hugs, becomes routine or absent. She's less initiating and less responsive to your initiation. Timing patterns change. She's more tired, busy, or distracted during your usual intimate times. Emotional intimacy shifts. Deeper conversations become rare. She shares less about her fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities. Your emotional check-ins feel surface level. She's less curious about your inner world. Comfort and playfulness between you decreases. The Stoic understanding. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When intimacy decreases, our instinct might be to withdraw, punish, or demand. The Stoic response is different. Intimacy requires presence, vulnerability, and emotional availability. When someone's attention is divided, intimacy naturally suffers. But the question is, where is that attention going? Important distinctions. Natural fluctuations versus concerning patterns. Natural. Temporary decreases due to stress, health, or life circumstances. Concerning. Sustained decrease with no clear cause or unwillingness to address it. Different scenarios. Scenario A, Lisa and Mark. Lisa's intimacy levels dropped significantly over several months. Mark's Stoic approach led him to first examine himself. Was he creating a safe, attractive space for intimacy? Then he initiated gentle conversations about their connection. Lisa revealed she was struggling with body, image issues after weight gain, and was embarrassed about intimacy. Together, they worked through it. Scenario B, Amanda and Steve. Amanda became physically and emotionally distant over time. She seemed distracted during intimate moments and was no longer curious about Steve's emotional world. When Steve applied Stoic principles and created space for honest dialogue, Amanda eventually revealed she had developed feelings for someone at work. The Stoic response framework. 1. Self-examination. First, am I creating conditions for intimacy to flourish? 2. Address the pattern, not individual instances. Focus on the overall shift, not one rejected advance. 3. Create safety for honest conversation. Make it safe for her to share what's really happening. 4. Focus on connection, not performance. Intimacy is about emotional connection, not just physical acts. Questions for self-reflection. Am I emotionally available and present? Do I create space for her to be vulnerable? Have I become complacent or taken our intimacy for granted? Am I responding to decreased intimacy in ways that make it worse? When it's a red flag, complete avoidance of physical intimacy without explanation. She seems uncomfortable with your touch. Emotional walls that didn't exist before. She's clearly present and engaged elsewhere, but consistently unavailable with you. The deeper Stoic wisdom. You cannot force intimacy. You can only create conditions where it might flourish and respond with dignity. When it doesn't. Sometimes, decreased intimacy signals that someone's intimate. Energy is being directed elsewhere. Our 7th sign often connects directly to intimacy changes. Sign 7. Her appearance and self-care habits shift. Sign number 7. She invests differently in her appearance and self-care. Seneca wrote, "Every man prefers belief to the exercise of judgment." When it comes to changes in our partner's appearance, we often prefer to believe the most comfortable explanation rather than exercise careful judgment. Changes in how someone presents themselves can signal internal shifts, new motivations, or different audiences they're considering. What these changes look like. Increased investment. New workout routines or fitness focus. Updated wardrobe, especially lingerie or clothing you rarely see. New grooming habits or beauty routines. More attention to appearance for ordinary activities. Experimenting with new styles, makeup, or hair. Taking more photos of herself. Decreased investment around you. Less effort when you're spending time together. Comfortable clothes become the default at home. She saves her best appearance for other occasions. Less interest in looking good for date nights with you. The psychology behind it. When we're interested in someone new, we naturally want to present our best selves. This can manifest as renewed focus on fitness, fashion, and overall attractiveness. The key question isn't whether she's taking care of herself. That's generally positive, but whether this investment seems motivated by your relationship or by something external to it. Stoic analysis. Marcus Aurelius reminds us how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. The Stoic approach isn't to police your partner's appearance choices, but to observe patterns and understand motivations. Two different stories. Story 1, Rachel's transformation. Rachel started working out regularly and upgraded her wardrobe significantly. Her boyfriend Tom initially felt suspicious. Was she trying to attract someone else? Using Stoic principles, Tom observed and communicated. Rachel explained that turning 30 had motivated her to prioritize her health and self-confidence. She included Tom in her new lifestyle, and their relationship actually improved. Key questions to consider. 1. Is this investment benefiting your relationship too? Does she want to look good for you as part of this new focus? 2. What's driving the change? Personal growth and self-confidence? Or external validation? 3. How does she respond to your appreciation? Does she welcome your compliments about her new look or seem indifferent? 4. Is the effort proportional? Does she put similar energy into looking good? The Stoic response. Appreciate her self-care. Don't make her feel guilty for investing in herself. Pay attention to patterns. Where does she direct her best appearance? Invest in yourself too. Her changes might inspire your own growth. Communicate appreciation. Make sure she knows you notice and value her efforts. Red flags? Secretive about new appearance investments. Dramatic changes that coincide with new friendships or activities. Looking her best for everyone except you. Defensive about appearance changes when you express appreciation. Yellow flags. General increased focus on self-care, often healthy. Trying new styles or looks can be personal exploration. Fitness or health improvements, usually positive for relationships. The 8th sign often accompanies these appearance changes. Sign 8. Friend groups and social circles evolve. Sign number 8. Her social circle suddenly expands or shifts. Epictetus taught, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. But what happens when your partner starts keeping company with people who seem to call forth a version of herself you don't recognize? Changes in social circles can be natural and healthy. People grow, develop new interests, and form new friendships. But sometimes these changes signal divided loyalties or new romantic interests. The patterns to notice. New social connections. Frequent mentions of new friends, especially male friends. Social activities that don't include you or aren't described in detail. Work friends who seem to exist outside of work context. Online friends or connections that become significant parts of her social time. Group activities where you're consistently not invited. Shifting priorities. Less time available for your mutual friends. Decreased interest in social activities you used to enjoy together. Her energy and excitement seem reserved for her new social connections. Stories about her social activities that don't quite add up. Changes in social behavior. She becomes more secretive about who she's spending time with. Her personality seems different when talking about certain friends. She's less interested in including you in her social world. New inside jokes and references you don't understand. Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." When your partner's social world shifts, you can remain steady and observant rather than reactive and controlling. Healthy versus concerning social changes. Healthy social evolution. She makes new friends through legitimate shared interests. You're included when appropriate and introduced to new friends. She maintains balance between new friendships and existing relationships. Her new social connections align with her stated values and interests. She's open about her new friendships and excited to share them with you. Concerning social patterns. Secretiveness about new friends, especially male friends. Social activities that consistently exclude you without reasonable explanation. Her behavior or mood changes significantly around certain friends. New social connections that seem to require deception or omitted details. She becomes less available for your shared social activities. Case studies. Sarah's expansion. Sarah joined a hiking group and made several new friends who shared her love of outdoor activities. Her boyfriend Mark initially felt left out, but Sarah regularly invited him to join group activities, introduced him to her new friends, and maintained her other social relationships. Her social expansion enriched their relationship. Lisa's division. Lisa developed a new group of work friends who went out regularly for drinks and social activities. Her boyfriend noticed she was often vague about these gatherings, never invited him, and seemed to have a different personality when talking about these friends. Eventually, he discovered that one of these work friends had become much more than a friend. The Stoic response strategy. 1. Observe without judgment. New friendships can be healthy and enriching. 2. Pay attention to inclusion versus exclusion patterns. Are you being intentionally kept separate? 3. Notice her energy and mood. Is she more excited about her new social connections than your relationship? 4. Communicate curiosity, not suspicion. Tell me more about your new friends. They seem important to you. 5. Maintain your own social connections. Don't become dependent on her social world for your own fulfillment. Questions for reflection. Does she want you to know her new friends? Are her new social connections consistent with her values? Is she maintaining balance in her social commitments? How does she respond when you express interest in her new friendships? The 9th sign often emerges from these social changes. Sign 9, defensive communication and deflection. Sign number 9, she becomes defensive about normal relationship conversations. Seneca wrote, "Every guilty person is his own hangman." When someone becomes consistently defensive about normal relationship interactions, they're often defending something beyond the immediate conversation. This isn't about occasional defensiveness. We all have sensitive topics. This is about a pattern of deflection, defensiveness, and avoidance around conversations that used to be normal and comfortable. What defensive communication looks like. Conversational deflection. Simple questions about her day become complicated. She turns conversations back to you or changes the subject. Normal curiosity is met with irritation or accusations of checking up on her. She becomes evasive about details that used to be freely shared. Conversations about your relationship become difficult to initiate. Emotional responses. Disproportionate reactions to reasonable questions. Anger or frustration when you express normal relationship needs. Guilt tripping when you try to address relationship concerns, making you feel like you're being unreasonable for wanting connection. Deflection patterns. Why are you so suspicious? When you haven't expressed suspicion. Turning discussions about her behavior into criticisms of your behavior. Using past relationship issues to avoid current conversations. Creating arguments to avoid intimacy or difficult discussions. The Stoic understanding. Marcus Aurelius teaches us the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. When someone becomes defensive, our instinct might be to become more aggressive or insistent. The Stoic response is to remain calm and observe the pattern. Defensiveness often indicates that someone is protecting something. The question is whether they're protecting their privacy, their autonomy, or their secrets. 2 different scenarios. Scenario A, Maria's defensiveness. Maria became defensive when her boyfriend asked about her day, feeling like he was micromanaging her life. Through Stoic-guided conversation, they discovered that Maria was feeling suffocated in the relationship and needed more autonomy. Her defensiveness was about maintaining healthy boundaries, not hiding anything. They worked together to find better balance. Scenario B, Kelly's deflection. Kelly started becoming defensive about basic questions. Where she was going, who she was with, how her day went. She would turn these conversations into arguments about trust and would make her boyfriend feel guilty for asking. Eventually, it became clear that Kelly's defensiveness was protecting an emotional affair that had been developing over several months. Recognizing the pattern. Normal boundary setting. Clear communication about privacy needs. Consistent boundaries that make sense. Willingness to discuss the boundaries themselves. Openness in other areas of the relationship. Concerning defensiveness. Overreactions to normal relationship interactions. Inconsistent explanations for defensive behavior. Making you feel wrong for having reasonable relationship expectations. Defensiveness that coincides with other concerning signs. The Stoic response framework. 1. Don't match defensiveness with aggression. Remain calm and curious. 2. Focus on the pattern, not individual instances. I've noticed you seem uncomfortable when I ask about your day. Can we talk about that? 3. Examine your own communication. Are you actually being intrusive, or is this disproportionate defensiveness? 4. Set boundaries around defensive behavior. You don't have to accept being made to feel wrong for reasonable relationship expectations. I focus on what you can control, your communication style, your emotional regulation, your boundaries. Key questions. Is her defensiveness protecting reasonable privacy or concerning secrets? Are your questions actually reasonable, or could they feel intrusive? Is she defensive about everything or specific topics? How does her defensiveness affect your ability to feel secure in the relationship? The deeper Stoic wisdom. You cannot control her defensive reactions, but you can control how you respond to them. Don't allow defensive communication to make you doubt your reasonable needs for connection and transparency in your relationship. Our 10th sign often underlies this defensive behavior. Sign 10, guilt and overcompensation behaviors. Sign number 10, she shows unusual guilt or starts overcompensating. Epictetus taught, no man is hurt but by himself. But what happens when someone you love starts hurting themselves with guilt, and that guilt manifests as overcompensation toward you? Guilt has a unique signature in behavior. When someone is doing something that conflicts with their values, that guilt often leaks out in unexpected ways. What guilt-driven overcompensation looks like: unusual generosity, unexpected gifts without special occasions, offering to do things for you that she normally wouldn't, being unusually accommodating about things she used to resist, expensive gestures that seem out of proportion, sudden willingness to do activities you enjoy but she typically doesn't, emotional overcompensation, excessive affection that feels forced or guilty rather than natural, sudden proclamations of love at unexpected times, being unusually complimentary or praising, initiating conversations about your relationship's strength when unprompted, overreacting positively to small things you do, behavioral changes, being unusually helpful around the house, sudden interest in your hobbies or preferences, making future plans with unusual enthusiasm, being more physically affectionate in a way that feels compensatory. The psychology of guilt. When someone acts against their stated values, like being faithful in a committed relationship, cognitive dissonance creates internal discomfort. One way people manage this discomfort is through overcompensation, doing extra positive things to balance out what they feel guilty about. Stoic analysis. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." The Stoic approach to recognizing guilt-driven behavior isn't about becoming suspicious of kindness, but about understanding authentic versus compensatory gestures. 2 real examples. Case A, Jennifer's kindness. Jennifer started bringing her boyfriend coffee every morning, planning special date nights, and being unusually accommodating about his friends and hobbies. Her boyfriend initially enjoyed the extra attention but noticed it, felt different, less spontaneous, more effortful. Through gentle conversation, Jennifer revealed she had been feeling disconnected from the relationship and was trying to rebuild their bond. Her behavior was compensating for emotional distance, not deception. Case B, Michelle's guilt. Michelle began buying her boyfriend expensive gifts, constantly telling him how much she loved him, and being unusually generous with her time and attention. The behavior felt forced and coincided with her being less emotionally available during conversations. Eventually, it became clear that Michelle's overcompensation was driven by guilt about an emotional affair she'd been having with a coworker. Distinguishing authentic versus guilty generosity. Authentic kindness feels natural and spontaneous, matches her normal communication and behavioral patterns. She seems genuinely happy when being generous. The kindness is consistent with other aspects of her behavior toward you. She can easily explain her motivations when asked. Guilt-driven overcompensation feels forced or excessive compared to normal patterns. Timing coincides with other concerning behaviors. She seems anxious or effortful rather than joyful when being generous. The generosity contrasts sharply with emotional distance in other areas. She becomes defensive when you acknowledge or question the sudden kindness. The Stoic response. 1. Appreciate kindness while observing patterns. Don't reject generous behavior, but notice if it feels authentic. 2. Don't become paranoid about positive gestures. Sometimes people are genuinely trying to improve the relationship. 3. Look at the whole picture. Does the overcompensation fit with other behaviors and communication? 4. Express gratitude. While remaining aware, thank you for being so thoughtful lately. What's inspiring this? 5. Focus on authentic connection. Encourage genuine, emotional intimacy over grand gestures. Questions for reflection. Does her generosity feel natural or effortful? Is she overcompensating in some areas while being distant in others? How does she respond when you try to understand her motivations? Does the timing of her generosity coincide with other concerning patterns? The deeper wisdom. True generosity in relationships flows from abundance and love, not from guilt and compensation. Trust your ability to distinguish between the two. Now let's explore a sign that often accompanies guilt. Sign 11. Stories and details don't add up. Sign number 11. Her stories have inconsistencies that accumulate over time. Seneca wrote, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." When someone is managing multiple versions of reality, maintaining consistency becomes increasingly difficult. This isn't about catching someone in dramatic lies. It's about noticing when details don't align, timelines don't match, and stories change in small but significant ways over time. What inconsistent details look like? Timeline confusion. Stories about when things happen that don't match previous versions. Gaps in her day that are explained differently when asked again. Activities that supposedly took longer or shorter than they logically should. Being unclear about when she was where, even for recent events. Detail changes. Who was present at events changes upon retelling. The purpose or nature of activities shifts in small ways. Locations or circumstances that are described differently over time. Her role in events or conversations that morphs with each telling. Information management. Being vague about details that would normally be clear. Over-explaining simple situations while under-explaining complex ones. Difficulty remembering conversations or events you shared recently. Stories that are too detailed, overcompensating, or too sparse, withholding. The Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius teaches, the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. People do forget details and remember things differently. The Stoic approach is to distinguish between normal human memory variations and patterns of deception. Memory versus deception. Normal memory variations. Small details change, but core facts remain consistent. She acknowledges when she's uncertain about details. Inconsistencies don't follow patterns or coincide with other concerning behaviors. She's comfortable discussing and clarifying when details don't match. Concerning inconsistencies, core facts of stories change, not just minor details. She becomes defensive when inconsistencies are noted. Patterns of confusion around specific types of activities or time periods. Stories become more complex and detailed when questioned, sign of fabrication. Real-world example. Case A, normal inconsistency. Sarah told her boyfriend she went to lunch with her sister on Tuesday. Later, she mentioned going to lunch with her sister on Wednesday. When he asked about the discrepancy, Sarah laughed and said, "I'm terrible with days. It was definitely Wednesday." The core event was consistent. Only the day was confused. Case B, concerning pattern. Lisa told her boyfriend she had drinks after work with female colleagues. When he asked about it later, she said it was a team dinner with mixed colleagues. When the topic came up again, she mentioned it was just a quick drink with her female manager. The story kept changing in ways that suggested management of information rather than simple memory confusion. The Stoic response strategy. 1. Don't become a detective. Tracking every detail creates paranoia and damages trust. 2. Notice patterns, not individual inconsistencies. Everyone misremembers sometimes. 3. Address patterns gently. I'm getting confused about the timeline. Can you help me understand? 4. Focus on your need for clarity. Frame it as wanting to understand her life, not catch her in lies. 5. Trust your pattern recognition. If multiple stories consistently don't add up, that information matters. When to be concerned. Inconsistencies cluster around specific types of activities, work events, social outings, time with certain people. She becomes defensive or angry when you point out inconsistencies. Details become more elaborate and complex when questioned. Her stories about the same events continue to evolve over time. The inconsistencies coincide with other signs from this list. The final Stoic insight. Truth has a simplicity that deception lacks. Authentic stories remain consistent because they're based in reality. Complex, shifting narratives often indicate someone trying to manage multiple versions of events. Now let's explore our final sign. Sign 12. Your intuition consistently signals something is off. Sign number 12. Your gut instinct consistently tells you something has changed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. But sometimes, happiness requires facing uncomfortable truths that our intuition has been trying to tell us." This final sign is perhaps the most important because it encompasses all the others. Your intuition, that accumulated wisdom of subtle observations, pattern recognition, and emotional intelligence, often knows before your rational mind accepts what's happening. What intuitive knowing feels like. Physical sensations, a persistent feeling in your stomach when you're together. Tension or unease during conversations that used to be comfortable. Feeling like you're walking on eggshells without knowing why. A sense of disconnection even when you're physically together. Emotional signals. Feeling like you're with a stranger sometimes, sensing that she's emotionally somewhere else. A persistent anxiety about your relationship without clear cause. Feeling like you're being managed or handled rather than loved. Mental recognition. Thoughts that something is different that you can't quite identify. Comparing her current behavior to how she used to be. Feeling like you're getting a performance rather than authentic interaction. Sensing that there are conversations happening that don't include you. The Stoic view of intuition. Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Your intuition embodies the accumulated wisdom of your observations and experiences. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition at a level deeper than conscious analysis. The Stoics valued reason, but they also understood that wisdom comes from integrating all forms of knowledge, including intuitive knowing. When intuition is reliable, your gut instinct is most reliable when it's persistent over time, not just occasional anxiety. It's based on changes in established patterns, not fear of hypothetical problems. It aligns with observable behaviors and changes you can identify. It feels like recognition rather than paranoid imagination. Case studies. Michael's recognition. Michael couldn't identify specific problems in his relationship, but he consistently felt like something was off. His girlfriend seemed less present, less connected, less interested in their shared future. Using Stoic principles, Michael trusted his intuition enough to create space for honest conversation. His girlfriend revealed she had been questioning whether she wanted to be in a long-term relationship and had been gradually preparing to leave. David's wisdom. David felt increasingly uncomfortable in his relationship, but couldn't pinpoint why. His intuition told him his girlfriend was becoming someone different. Through patient observation and Stoic-guided communication, he discovered she was indeed changing, growing into someone whose values and life goals were becoming incompatible with his. His intuition had recognized this incompatibility before his mind could articulate it. The Stoic response to intuitive knowing. 1. Trust your accumulated wisdom. Your intuition represents millions of micro-observations your conscious mind hasn't processed. 2. Don't dismiss gut feelings as paranoia. Distinguish between fear-based anxiety and pattern-based recognition. 3. Use intuition as a guide for inquiry, not conclusion. Let it direct your attention without predetermined outcomes. 4. Integrate intuitive and rational knowing. Combine your gut feelings with observable evidence. 5. Enact on strong, persistent intuitive signals. Don't ignore consistent inner knowing. The final Stoic integration. When multiple signs from this list align with persistent intuitive knowing, you have enough information to take action. That action might be creating space for honest, vulnerable conversation, setting boundaries around behaviors that don't serve your peace, making decisions about your relationship's future, focusing on your own growth and clarity. Marcus Aurelius's final wisdom. Confine yourself to the present. Whether your intuition is warning you about infidelity or simply recognizing that your relationship is changing, your power lies in how you respond in this moment. You cannot control her choices, but you can control your response to the truth. Your intuition is revealing. Now let's bring all these signs together.